I'm going to dive in a little bit to the Scotus decision on the overturning of the Chevron Doctrine. What the Chevron Doctrine does, essentially, is expertise utilization. It takes the agencies like the Environmental Protection Agency, the Education Department, any of the agencies that have specialized knowledge, that have scientists, working, the, Food and Drug Administration, the DEA, things like that. These are agencies filled with experts. These people went to school for this stuff to study the effects of certain chemicals on the environment and all this other stuff that is way over my pay grade, your pay grade, and 90% of the people in this world's pay grade. But that is what these agencies are built on. They create the laws basically utilizing their knowledge to say this is safe, this is not safe. No, you can't put that stuff in the streams and the mountains because it'll poison all the animals and the people downstream. Those types of decisions that are made by scientists, made by actual knowledge in a subject. Now, this goes from the EPA to the Department of Education, and they can leverage that specialized knowledge to make every single decision necessary. It makes it more efficient because it basically reduces the need for constant litigation, and allowing the agencies to interpret the laws themselves and what is applicable to that specific scenario. It's the federal government trusting the agencies to do what they do best, and that is making sure that everything is as safe as it can be and regulated so much it protects everything it needs to protect. Now, the expertise utilization is what makes it so important, because it's like nutritionalists that work in the Department of Education, and they're putting together a healthy lunch and things like that. Or we have the EPA that's determining whether or not drilling could happen in this situation or that situation, or whether fracking or any of the other stuff. All this stuff that, whether or not the trains have to have specialized brakes when they're carrying over a certain amount of weight, because it makes it harder for them to slow down and makes it more likely that they can fly off the track. And like we saw in these recent train accidents, the regulations were in place, and then the regulations were lifted by Donald J. Trump. So they went back in place because that's what caused the crash. The EPA and the people experts in that know how to handle that. The EPA is a bunch of scientists that know what type of chemicals and everything else can go near what types of stuff, what type of stuff we can eat, we can consume. It tells these companies they're not allowed to do this. No, they're not allowed to put Roundup in the streams and the mountains by their factory. They're not allowed to do stuff like that. And what the Chevron Doctrine did was guarantee that balance. If that Chevron Doctrine wasn't in place, every time a business had to open something up and they got charged by the EPA because they were spilling chemicals through their whole build process of their factory, and it pumps all the stuff directly into the stream, so they got fined by it and sued by it and everything else. It basically gives them the opportunity to sue the government, to sue, and the courts, the state courts, the county courts have to handle those lawsuits now. That's what getting rid of the Chevron Doctrine does. So now every little tiny decision that needs to be made is being made by judges. So decisions about science and the health of our children and the health of everything around us, the drinking water, the air we breathe, companies that had regulations on smokestacks and got fined millions and millions of dollars or shut down because they wouldn't comply with, putting smokestacks up that are better for the environment. Those types of things are automatically overturned with this. It gives those companies the ability to reopen, to sue, to take legal action. And the courts have to deal with all of it. Essentially, the FDA, the EPA, these on the ground, boots on the ground stuff that tries their best to keep us safe based on knowledge, science, and expertise in that specific field, their hands are tied, and nothing they say is correct anymore. The judges are going to decide scientifically what's better in food, in drugs, with the environment, with chemicals. The judges are going to make the decisions on that. Not the FDA, not the EPA. The judges. That's what the Chevron Doctrine protected us against. To carry that further, this ensures that just decisions from here on out will be made by people who have no idea what they're talking about in those fields. It reduces the burden on the judicial system and speeds up the decision-making process, allowing quicker implementation of policies. That's the effect on the citizens. And the reason the quicker implementation of the policies is because they didn't have to go to the courts. That's what it did. It made it go through faster. Now everything goes to the courts. So everything is going to be more obnoxious. The problem is the weight of these decisions when it comes to, for instance, things that the EPA handles. If there was a company that got fined for one particular chemical and shut down or whatever, they will have permission to use that chemical because all they have to do is convince a justice, a court. Yeah, that's what the Supreme Court just did to all of the federal agencies full of experts in their field. They took their power away and gave it to the judges. So that's a real important decision. So we'll have a lot more trains flipping over and poisons going into our drinking water and things like that, because there won't be many restrictions that are enforceable unless the courts say okay. Scotus decisions do a lot to our daily lives. They do a lot. And we need to make sure that's worthwhile, and we need to make sure they're protected so they can continue to do a lot. The agencies within our government, though they may piss us off at times, we may have doubts in them sometimes, they are created to keep us safe. And they are created to be cleaned up if needed. If there's a nefarious person in any of those, there is a way to get them out. That's built into the structure of this country. It's built into the fabric. And having the delegation of authority, the delegation of action, where the experts handle what they're expert with, is part of the structure that needs to remain. Now, we have Supreme Court justices that are on the take for all these big companies. That's been proven. They also passed a law this week that it's okay for the government and justices to get a gratuity after a case. But if they take a gift before the case, then it's a bribe. That's the new law. That's what Scotus said. So it's now legal to be paid off. So you think that has anything to do with overturning the Chevron Doctrine? I think it just might. More Scotus rulings coming. Stay diligent, stay educated, and be kind. We're all in this together. And things are going to change quick. But we got this. United.